It's not just mine, his or her house. This is our house.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tyrone Lowe. This is my show, The Legends. I want to thank everybody that actually subscribes to my show and show me love all over the world. In the House of the Legends, this person that I'm actually going to introduce you to has a lot of hats. He's a DJ, he's an author, he's a producer, and he's a personal friend of mine. In the House of the Legends, I give you DJ Disciples. What's going on, dude?
How are you, Tyrone? Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you for being here, man.
Yes.
So, in case you don't know this guy, we're going to talk about a little bit of his past, and we're going to bring you up to speed. So let's talk about how you actually got into music, man.
I was born in it.
Okay.
I lived in the same building as Grandmaster Flowers. Across the street lived Kenny Carpenter, who knew me when I was born, and Strafe as well. I used to come to the house.
Right.
He's the man that made Set It Off.
Right.
My brother Larry Banks played for the Church of the Open Door, and my brother Stanley Banks played for George Benson and been playing for George Benson for 40 years.
That's
my
amazing.
dad, William Banks, he also played the piano and jammed with Miles Davis. So I was born into the music. I have pictures of myself when I was 2 years old, having my head around the turntable. As the turntable was moving, I would swirl my head around. And this was back in 1965, 66. So ever since I was a baby, I was born into this music from the early soul. My mother was an avid lover of WBLS when it was called WBLIB. And so we were always into different musical movements at that time. And so I was born into music, and I had a lot of family musicians come through. As I said before, Grandmaster Flowers lived in my building, but his brother was Tyrone Flowers, and he would come in and do covers with my brother Larry, because my brother Larry also played bass. So the Flowers family and my family were really, really, really good friends. Whereas when Flowers and Dice, when he was doing a lot of graffiti, Stanley at that time was playing football with Flowers at a certain point as they were coming up in Farragut. Farragut Housing had great, great artists throughout the post-disco era. Rusty Taylor played the bass for Shannon. And obviously, you know, you had James Missouri, who played at the Church of the Open Door initially in the 60s, who was down with the East Harlem Gospel Choir, which was a gospel funk group that was played by DJs like Nicky Siano at the Gallery. So Farragut has always been a special place for music. When the Navy Yard closed down, you had a variety of different places that catered to people, but when that shut down, a lot of faith-based communities came up. Jim Hill was a pastor, motivational pastor for a place at St. Ives. He was a motivational speaker that did free breakfast for the kids. You had other people like Janet McDonald, who wrote the book that became popular on Oprah Winfrey, but she came from Dr. White Community Center, and we all came up there with doing the Riversiders and Streamliners. So our family history, as far as music is concerned, has been very intimate and very strong.
And that's kind of cool because you've been around for a while, and you've traveled some places as well. And so when did you actually say to yourself one day, I'm really going to take this to a whole different level in my life and make it a passion?
Well, I was a gospel drummer at the Greater Refuge Temple. So I started off playing drums in church, and I've discovered music through Ralph Davis. Ralph Davis will always be part of my story because he helped me and he introduced me to radio. And from that point, I started doing gospel music. I was writing for it as a writer for the Ticker. So when I got into college, you could say I've really started my journey into just journalizing the music as well as playing the music. And then DJ Jazz taught me about house music. He introduced me to what house music is. and Rockin' Rich taught me how to mix. Rockin' Rich works for WBLS now.
Oh, okay, okay.
But he taught me how to mix. So all of these elements really wanted me to help me to take it to another level. When I started working at WNYE 91.5 FM in 1988, that's when I really knew that I had the biggest platform that any DJ could have doing radio all around New York City. And I was able to utilize that platform for the hunger musically for DJs here in New York and abroad, working with UK pioneers like a guy named Gerald, who made the song Voodoo Ray, which was a popular song back in '88.
Exactly,
Richie Rich that did Salsa House, and Baby Ford. These are all acid house producers.
Right.
I was into regular house and acid house movements, learning under the tutelage of just going out and hearing DJs like Johnny Dynell and Roman Ricardo, both who had played at the Palladium and the Tunnel. So I kind of came in on the back end of house music explosions that was happening after the Paradise Garage closed, and then knowing that the college kids that went to the garage were the kids that I started playing for. So I had to understand what the Paradise Garage was and who Larry Levan was. And at that time, Larry Levan was like God to a lot of people. He was like, oh my God, this person is an amazing DJ.
Yeah.
And when I went to Studio 54 at the behest of a college promoter named Monty Collins, he said, listen, man, in order for you to be down with Phi Beta Sigma and doing college parties with us, you got to play like that guy. And that guy was Larry Levan.
I hear
and
that.
so I had to learn what he was able to do and relearning what the Paradise Garage Classics was, what were the differences between what happened between there and the Loft, what happened between the Loft and the Gallery, what happened between all those musical movements that helped enrich the radio show. And so my mother had a say in, hey, you got to put women on the radio. You would need to interview different kind of people on your radio show. So since '88, I had been interviewing house music artists and documenting their movements.
Right.
And so with the popularity of that radio show, and because I was catering so much to British artists, my radio show started becoming popular in the UK where they were selling tapes of my shows.
Wow.
And this is how
That's
I was
amazing.
able to, so being able to sell the tapes and becoming popular in England, because of it, the demand grew for me to inevitably go over there. But before that happened, there were some other musical movements that I bring out, which is part of why this book is here today in front of you.
Before we get into the book, let's talk about you per se to the point where some of the places that you've actually played at.
Okay.
Let's talk about that.
Well, here in New York, I was very, very fortunate because after the Paradise Garage closed, the first club I played at was Studio 54.
Okay.
Okay. Once I was able to be successful at Studio 54, I was doing Phi Beta Sigma events where I would close shows for Run DMC and Jomanda and a lot of the hip hop artists because house music and hip hop kind of fused with the same audience.
Right.
But the Phi Beta Sigmas knew that it was cheaper to get Liz Torres as opposed to some of the bigger acts, that hip hop acts that they had. So doing the college circuit was a great way to springboard me for awareness, coupled with the radio show, to get the attention of the Wild Pitch parties, which was what Greg Day, DJ Camacho, Nick Jones, Bobby Condas. And this nucleus of a collaboration between New York DJs and New Jersey DJs that were collective in bringing this music together and making it completely underground. Richard Vasquez is a person that went to the same church that I went to, which was the Greater Refuge Temple.
Oh, okay.
And so that helped with the fact that I was so much into trying to pursue the knowledge of understanding classics that came from the garage. He offered me the opportunity to alternate with Larry Levan at The Choice, which was on 3rd Street and Avenue A on the lower side of Manhattan.
Right.
And so by playing at The Choice, I was able to alternate with him and then Basil. Frankie Knuckles played at the same location, as did Dave Morales, and as of Victor Rosado. So a lot of the collective of DJs I had to sit and learn from those guys, DJ Camacho as well.
Right.
So from that, inevitably, there was an opening in Jersey. And the first place I played at was Club 280,
Okay.
which is where Hippie Torales and Deuce Martinez were also residents. I shared nights with DJ Camacho there,
Right.
and we started getting the Zanzibar crowd. So much so that when Tony Humphries left, I started playing at Zanzibar.
Okay.
So from the Zanzibar scene, I was able to connect with Jazzy B and Naeem Johnson. Naeem Johnson was that culture bearer that became popular in Jersey after Tony Humphries left.
Right.
So from those musical movements, I get introduced, obviously, knowing who Roger Sanchez is. And Roger Sanchez exposes me to the West Coast rave scene, which is started with Toontown and so forth. Those musical movements helped shape me into the musical diversity as a DJ until 1992. At the end, November, December, I started going to Lakota and Bristol, and I started touring in the UK. I started playing at Ministry of Sound. I started understanding what Feel Real is and understanding where a lot of the musical movement. So a lot of my records started becoming big. I started producing records here in the Bronx with Bobby Davis from Shore Record
Right.
Pool.
And I'm still in Shore.
Right.
I'm still in
And so,
Shore.
by
Right.
producing those records
Right.
from Shore Record Pool, Bobby gives me that platform.
Right, right.
And I start working with Eddie Perez from Smack Productions. And it was important for me to profile one important person that I think needed help to bring their sound out. That person's name was Todd Edwards.
Okay.
And I was trying to break his name. I asked Roger to remix a song, any song from his catalog, and he did As I Am. At that time, I was known for breaking unreleased material. Camacho and I had broken records like Follow Me. We were the first one to break it. I think that Camacho was responsible also for getting that record signed to Strictly Rhythm. But also, when I went to the UK, I was the first one playing Deep Inside by Barbara Tucker.
Okay.
So we were breaking in records, and I was known as an acetate person that kind of collaborate with the UK DJs out there like Paul Trouble Anderson and Femi B. A lot of us were breaking acetates and breaking the musical movements.
Right.
And so inevitably, with working with Smack, I had gotten a record on the dance floor that I did with Lemuel Blackwell that was part of Grassroots Records. That record wound up going number 67 in the charts.
Wow.
So at this time, I'm also documenting for Street Sound magazine. So not only am I playing in the clubs and I'm writing the music and I'm doing radio, that overseas work that I start doing in collaboration goes a full gear further. And this is all like something that springboards out of the mindset of being humble, right? Being able to have a collaborative spirit.
Right.
And knowing the power of delegation, to know that you don't have to do everything yourself, but if you give as much power as the next person that you have, and you all come up together, then you can all grow together.
That's true. You know, unification process is a very important part of any culture, actually.
Yes.
You know, I think we need a little bit more of that because from the beginning to now, as far as Indies is concerned, the game has changed a little bit as far as attitude. You know, it's not like the vibes is not like what we had like in the 70s and the 80s where we were more into unification. There wasn't nobody trying to cut nobody's throats, things of that nature. You know, the vibes were just different. But in the meantime, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back with my boy, DJ Disciples, and we're going to get into this here book. Okay, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It's not just mine, his or her house. This is our house.
My assignment, my calling is to inspire, uplift.
You have to make sure your people are partying.
All I want to do is just bring joy to the dance floor and watch people dance.
Tino.
Tyrone Lowe.
DJ Tyrone Lowe. DJ Tyrone Lowe.
That's nice.
The dynamic soul sounds of DJ Tyrone Lowe. And we're back. My name is Tyrone Lowe. This is my show, The Legends, and in the House of the Legends, I have DJ Disciples. So what we're going to talk about is he has a brand new book out, and he has a book signing coming up too, but we're going to talk about that. So DJ Disciple, let's talk about the book, the beat, the scene, the sound.
Yes. It's the behind-the-scenes account of house music in New York City from the 1980s up until the EDM storylines. And the reason why this book was written was because there's a lot of stories that's been not told. A lot of people that are in this book are no longer alive.
Right.
Some have passed on. Some have had some struggles. And this is talking about DJing from a social justice aspect because we're talking about DJing through the crack epidemic,
Right.
the AIDS epidemic, and the broken windows policy where Giuliani demonized nightclubs, shut it down,
Right.
and then DJs had to travel abroad to make most of their money. And from that, in my journey, we talk about all the musical movements. This would not been really possible without the help of my co-writer, Henry Kronk. I approached him in 2018 with a bunch of stories that I've documented.
Right.
And we worked together to formulate an impulsive, powerful story that talks about nightlife, about different genres of house music,
Right.
and about different musical movements dealing with different levels of what DJs have to navigate through.
Right.
Why it's important for them to have managers and agents, how they can go through a mental depression, how they can lose faith, how house music has changed
Right.
from the vinyl we were playing back in the days into the music that can be sometimes disposable in an MP3 format. And then dealing with record store culture, dealing with different levels of producing and studio hardware that we used back then till now.
Right. It's one thing you didn't mention was record pools.
Oh, it's in there though.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what's up.
Yeah. Short Record Pool is definitely in
Okay.
there because obviously Bobby Davis, I
Yes.
met from the New Underground Network. And so his influence and impact on my life is
Right.
important. So that's definitely mentioned in the book.
You know, it's just one day you just woke up and said, I'm just going to just go ahead and symbolize the legacy of this thing called music. And you said to yourself, well, I just want to just go ahead and just express myself out there and collect all this information and make it very, accessible to people out there. And so how did you actually come about it,
Well, I mean, I think it's important for people to know who David Camacho is. But
Right.
nobody knows who Paul Trouble Anderson is. But let's put the DJs to the side.
Okay.
Let's just talk about some of the dancers that are in the
Right,
book.
okay.
Like Voodoo Ray, or like a E. Joe Wilson, or Marjorie Smart. These are dancers that have made a name for themselves
Right.
overseas. Or a Dawn Tallman, who was the queen of gospel energy.
Right.
The importance of, Barbara Tucker and Don Welch as promoters. So there are a lot of women in our scene. There are a lot of different scenes that I talk about that are important and relevant
Right.
from every kind of scene that I can think of. When we talking about Francis Grosso and how he was also one of the pioneers that helped mix records together.
Right.
Obviously, we talk about Grandmaster Flowers, but there are a lot of legacies tied into the book.
Right.
To make sure that people know that this is coming from an inclusive mindset.
Right,
It's my
exactly.
journey,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of people and scenes, dancers, singers that are involved. Obviously, we can do another volume to enhance it.
I think you
But
should.
I think that this will be a way for people to understand that within every DJ or promoter, there's a story.
Right.
When I go to libraries and I go to bookstores, I don't see house music on the table. And so we've been published by Roman Littlefield,
Okay.
which we've been very fortunate. They're one of the biggest publishers in America. And Louis Vega has done our forward. We've had the support of Roger Sanchez, of Armand Van Helden, Robert Owens, that helped us, navigate through this, as well as Josh Milan. So we had a lot of the house music community behind us, but it is written for the intention for the people that are passionate about this music and want to see what the culture is all about. So we recognize DJs like Remarkable, Risa Garcia, promoters like Becky Nunez, that are still, as a woman,
That's
still
effective,
making, that is effective. Mickey Affleck, that is doing producing in our own right. So there are a lot of musical movements that we talk about, but we want to make sure that we give everybody their flowers.
Right. And that's very important that, because everybody doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Nobody has that collective thought of saying that one day I'm going to pay homage to a lot of people that actually came into the house music scene that are not with us and people that are still with us.
Yes.
I think that's very important. So my question to you, what is house music to you, man, personally?
House music is a language spoken, understood by all, but not everybody understands house music because it's a spiritual thing, it's a body thing, it's a soul thing. And so what does house music mean to you? It can be the lyrics of something that saves your life.
Right.
It could be something that touches you and that you never can forget about. So we know that house music can heal. We know that house music is a unify. It takes away the stigma of what people might think of in an LGBTQ community.
Right.
Because you can be whatever sexual orientation you want to be in house music, and you could still be aligned with that person and tell that person, I love you. Or I can talk to a dancer that may not, they might come from a poor economic class, or anybody that comes from a poor economic class.
Right.
It transcends all of that. That's what house music is to me. It's something that transcends and that's a healer. And the beautiful thing about house music to me is that so many people that come from the church also connect with house music from the very beginning. When we think about Darryl Pandy, come from the church. Robert Owens, come from the church. Everybody.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people collectively, because we see that it is morally neutral. It really, really doesn't belittle women. It doesn't talk about negative aspects.
Right.
And then even as you age older, house music is there for you when you want to live longer and you want to dance your life away. You can dance and you can burn calorie off. And then you with an audience that's also grown within your audience. You don't have to go to a club or a young person party because the mobile DJ movement is back. You can go to a Commodore Barry Park and party with people that's 40, 50, 60, 70, and you don't have to feel excluded. You could be included in our musical movement, and you don't have to stay back in the day. A lot of the DJs that's in their 40s, 50s, 60s are still pushing this music for that audience that's within their same age group and still being connected to the music from new artists or old artists, whatever option it is. And so for house music, it means a lot to a lot of people, but it is a unifier. It is, since the Woodstock movement, something that talks about peace, love and togetherness and happiness.
My question to you is, like, I ask everybody this on my shows because it's very important, it's very informative. What do you have to say to the DJ of tomorrow that actually wants to get into the craft today? What do they have to actually do? What guidelines they really have to follow? And also the fundamentals of actually getting into the craft itself.
I think that when you repurpose yourself and know where you stand, you have to also, because we in the internet age, we have to really assess where we at, what we need to invest ourselves in. Some people invest themselves as just being a promoter, and they expand that network, and that allows them to become a DJ because they know so many people. They go out every day, and they connect. Some people, like the people that's in the book, are dancers. They never got into it as a DJ, but because they love the music so much, and they're connected to the DJs that's playing it, they discovered, and they go through the record shops or they go on to digital stores, and they find their own craft and create their own style. The internet has created a way where people can express themselves musically. And so I would encourage everybody that has a lane, which many do. There's a lot of DJ schools for people where they can go and learn the craft. There's a lot of online sessions where people can learn how to produce music. They can know about studio equipment. The internet has given people access for a lot of people to be DJs. And I don't frown on any scene. I think that any scene could be purposefully used to help enable anybody to become stronger, because house music has become that gateway where everybody can, even if it's within their own bubble, they can find a level of creativity and expression. Living in New York City, where rent is $3,000 a month, a lot of people don't get the ability to live out their dreams.
Right.
They have to have a job, or they have to have a side, or do that on the side.
Something, yeah.
And so that's also what we struggle with in this book, is because every time you want to choose DJing as a career, you got to kind of roll the dice.
Yeah.
And you got to
Most
navigate
definitely,
what's
yeah.
important and what's for priorities. When I had my daughter, when my daughter was born, I stopped touring the world because I did everything I needed to do at that time. There's a time and place for everything. And sometimes you have to do what you need to do in order for you to do what you want to do. And so sometimes later in life, you might have been a corrections officer, or you might have been that fire department person, and you always had DJing in your love. But now that you retired in your pension, now you want to get back into it. And guess what? It's not too late. So even if you're 17 or you're 55, there's still room for you in house music.
Okay. So let's talk about how the book's doing, and where do you feel that it needs to really go right now?
Well, it's #1.
Okay.
And it hit #1 in Amazon.
Right.
But it's the most important thing. We're having the showcase at the New York Public Library on June 23rd, and the Newark Public Library on June 24th.
Okay.
The Newark Public Library is from 6 to 7, and then the New Jersey Library is from 2 to 4, followed by a party with Deuce Martinez, Naeem Johnson, as well as Ray Vasquez and DJ Dove. And it's important because house music is an American musical institute that should always be regarded in the highest regard. So I am actually taking it to the UK from July 10th to the 16th to also put it out in libraries there, facilities there, so that house music is known worldwide for our achievements and the things that we have done, to be recognized for it. And obviously the response and the critical response has been phenomenal. TrackSource just gave it 5 stars.
That's great.
Library Journal loves it. The American Library Association loves it. So we are getting kudos because it's a different kind of story.
Right.
It's a unique story about a unique history, about a unique journey. And it's told from the perspective that's inclusive to many scenes that let people know that you are valued. And the end of the story is to showcase that the people that are involved in my journey, they are important people in our journey that should also be recognized.
Right.
And so with that love, through the social justice episode of it, through the arrangement of what DJs have to navigate through, this is an important part of American music history.
Okay. Well, you know what? It's been a pleasure having you on my show, man. We could probably do another half an hour of
Yes,
this.
we
You know
can.
what I'm saying? Because history just seems to be reoccurring as we go along.
Yes.
But it's been a pleasure having you on my show, and this has been another T-Lo video production. Go out here and get this book. He has a book signing June 23rd at the Public Library. We'll forward all the information. We're edited in on the screen. So this has been another T-Lo video production, and your guys stay tuned for another episode. Thank you so much, DJ Disciple, to be on my show. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Yes.
This is our